on Route 333. One of the first rules you learn is never, under any circumstances, pick up a hitchhiker. But what if that hitchhiker is the love you thought you'd lost forever? Why are you doing this? That was the thing his girlfriend of 3 years, Myra, asked him repeatedly in the days leading up to his departure for the new trucking gig. He could have gone with the easy answer, the money. But the closer his start date got, the more he was sure that wasn't the whole reason. How could he put into words the growing feeling that he couldn't stay, that he wasn't happy there or anywhere, and it was slowly suffocating him? The night before his flight, she tried one last time. "We'll talk every day while you're driving, yeah?" He remembered the bloodied corpse of the other interviewee. He remembered the pavement on his face as things skittered around his rig. How could he explain the phone rule? He stayed silent. Her voice got soft. "We're breaking up, aren't we?" I think we are." Instead of anger, she hugged him, kissed him on the cheek, and left. At the door, she paused. "Goodbye, Brendon." In the job preparation packet, his new trucking company was very clear on one thing: read the employee handbook. So he did what anybody would do in the situation. He skimmed it. The parts he did read had some weird stuff in them. Sections on what to do if the moon forgot to show up, or explanations on which gas stations were normal and which ones had rules to obey, like don't stare anybody in the eyes. There was a whole page with a bullet list on which FM radio stations were safe and which might put you into a trance. "Never speed," read a sentence in Section 5A. "If you do, it may draw the attention of the Highway Patrol. They are not Highway Patrol." He was around 95% sure he would die a morbidly gruesome death, more of a passing interest than an actual fear. However, his first haul went off without a hitch. The redwoods, the desert, the canyons. He delivered his haul at an abandoned building and made it back alive and well. Back at the truck yard, he dangled his keys in front of Randall, who whistled. 14 hours there and back? That is simply unheard of. "Can I ask you what I actually delivered?" No, you may not." Randall smiled cheerily and plucked the keys from him. His next few weeks went almost equally smooth. Randall and the other dispatchers started sending him on longer and longer trips. He knew the road would expand over time. He'd heard tidbits from other drivers about truckers who hadn't quit in time, who'd been stuck on Route 333 for years, trying to get back. Frankly, most days, he didn't care. For the first time in years, his racing thoughts were finally slowing, his chronic overthinking fading to a pleasant numbness. Before he'd started, he'd been worried that the loneliness would get to me. Now, the only thing he worried about anymore was about how entirely fine he was being this alone. He'd stopped for fuel at a petrospeed when he heard it, a voice. At first, he couldn't entirely place it, but something nagged at his mind. Finally, he twisted to see who belonged to the voice. He gaped. It was Myra, his ex-girlfriend, talking animatedly with a gas station worker. "What do you mean there's no mechanics in the area? How am I supposed to keep driving in that thing?" "Myra?" She whirled, then realized who he was. Her hands flew to her mouth, and she threw herself in his arms. "This is insane! What are you doing here?" "Looking for you. I've called a dozen times the last few days, and you never picked up. I got worried." He wouldn't have picked up. He didn't even bring his phone anymore. But her somehow tracking him felt exactly like the sort of impulsive thing Myra would do, the exact reason he fell in love with her. Amazing luck! If my car hadn't died, I wouldn't have stopped here. Can I ride with you? They talked for hours. It was just like before. They laughed and sang along to country songs at ear-shattering volumes. After a few hours, she grabbed his hand, and he didn't stop her. He thought he was fine with the loneliness, but having her here, he knew he'd minded more than he let himself believe. "I never thought you'd want to talk with me again. At first, I didn't." She stroked his knuckle with her thumb. "I don't think I'll ever stop loving you." He felt happy. He glowed the whole evening, all up until they stopped at a rest stop for the night, and she slipped out to use the bathroom. "Everything's good," he reported on his handheld radio. "You sound chipper." He told him about running into Myra. Randall went quiet. "You know you aren't supposed to pick up hitchhikers." "I didn't. She's not a hitchhiker. I know her." "Did she ask you for a ride?" "No. I offered her a ride. But he hadn't, had he? A slow, deadly chill spread up his back. "Who are you talking to?" Myra climbed back into the cab. "Nobody. Nobody at all." She fell asleep instantly, cuddled up next to him. He tried to rationalize. "This is Myra. I know her. I haven't broken any rules." He forced himself to close his eyes. He woke up hours later, a gradual wake-up. Something wet was on his face. He cracked his eyes open just a fraction. She was staring at him. In the early morning light, Myra watched him with an enormous grin, fully awake. She leaned in and ran her tongue from his chin up to his forehead. "I love you." The last few hours of the drive were tense. She wouldn't leave the truck, not once. "Stop it," she growled the fourth time he stopped. Her face distorted into a grotesque mask, then softened back into a smile. "Myra, there's actually something I need to ask you. Something I have to kneel for." A soft smile tugged at her lips. Finally, she relented. She followed him from the truck. As they walked, her steps grew more erratic. The skin on her face looked less smooth, more like plastic. "Close your eyes." She did. Then he bolted for the truck. It was seconds before she realized what was happening. By the time the thing, the not Myra, reached him, the doors were already locked. He was already rolling away. Her face was something entirely inhuman. Her eyes dripped like melted wax from her empty sockets, and her hair peeled off in clumps. "No, I love you! Don't leave me!" But he did, for the second time. When he returned to the truck yard, he said nothing. Randall didn't either, though he seemed visibly surprised to see him. He simply accepted the keys with a wink. The first thing Brendon did when he got in his own car was make a phone call. The person on the other end picked up. Neither of them spoke. Hi. How could he ever have forgotten what Myra's true voice sounded like? "Brendon, why are you calling?" "I don't entirely know." "Are you all right?" "I'm not sure." She told him she was with somebody new. He said, "Okay." "Why did you do this to me? You left after 3 years, no warning. I loved you and you threw me away." "It is," he sighed, leaning his head against the steering wheel. "Myra, I think there's something broken about me. That wasn't fair of me to leave like that. You deserve to hate me." "I could never hate you." They hung up. Sitting there, after the call, he considered quitting. He should have been afraid of Route 333. After the bodies and the creatures, anybody smarter than him would have quit. But he couldn't. He was afraid of the road, of the things that prowled behind the trees, and the thing that had slept next to him in bed. Of course he was. He was just afraid of the real world more. So he stayed. He kept driving. And one day, when the road expands past days into weeks, possibly even years, he will keep driving. Brendon escaped the not Myra, but the call with the real Myra only deepens the mystery. Can the road use our own memories against us? Find out in the next part of Route 333. If this story is pulling you in, support the channel by hitting that like button. And to make sure you don't miss the next terrifying leg of this journey, subscribe to Dark Facts and ring that notification bell.
And remember, the most dangerous passengers are the ones we invite in ourselves.